Samsy. Story time with Ronnie. How you doing, guys? We got Journey to the Center of the Earth, Part 20. What are we doing? Well, we're going to continue on that drive. We made it down the hill from Payson, and we just rolling along now, and we pick it up outside of, I guess it was Rye. I can see the Ballantine, I think it's called Ballantine trailhead to the right over there. And we're going to make it up and over Mount Ord today, and that'll be about good. Now this story, Journey to the Center of the Earth, we had just finished off on chapter 18, where they had to come back. They had, they went down the wrong way, and then they had to turn around and come back. And of course, Harry thought the whole deal was over then. They were just going to give up and quit. And the professor's like, oh, what? No, come on, give me one more day. They gave Columbus 3 days. Give me 1 day. I'll find you some water. Don't worry about it. So he says, okay. He was pouting and screaming and trying to he was grabbing Hans by the hand and trying to make him, and Hans is like, no way, that guy's paying my bills, even though I might be dead. He's still gonna, he's still the man. So here we go. We're gonna pick it up in chapter 19, the Western Gallery, a new route. Our descent was now resumed by means of the second gallery. Hans took up his post in front, as usual. We had not gone more than 100 yards when the professor, carefully examining the walls, "This is the primitive formation. We are on the right road. Onwards is our hope." When the whole earth got cool in the first hours of the world's morning, the diminution of the volume of the earth produced a state of dislocation in its upper crust, followed by ruptures, crevasses, and fissures. The passage was a fissure of this kind, through which ages ago had flowed the eruptive granite. The 1,000 windings and turnings formed by an inextricable labyrinth through the ancient soil. As we descended, successions of layers composing the primitive soil appeared with the utmost fidelity of detail. Geological science considers this primitive soil as the base of the mineral crust, and it has recognized that it is composed of 3 different strata or layers, all resting on the immovable rock known as granite. No mineralogist had ever found themselves placed in such a marvelous position to study nature in all her real and naked beauty. The sounding rod, a mere machine, could not bring to the surface of the earth the object of value for the study of its internal structure, which we were about to see with our own eyes, to touch with our own hands. Remember that I am writing this after the journey. Across the streak of rocks, colored by beautiful green tints, wound metallic threads of copper, of manganese, with traces of platinum and gold. I could not help gazing at these riches buried in the entrails of Mother Earth, and of which no man would have the enjoyment to the end of time. These treasures, mighty and inexhaustible, were buried in the morning of the earth's history, at such awful depths that no crowbar or pickaxe will ever drag them from their tune. The light of our Ruhmkorff coil increased tenfold by the myriad of prismatic masses of rock, sent their jets of fire in every direction, and I could fancy myself traveling through a huge hollow diamond, the rays of which produced myriads of extraordinary effects. Towards 6 o'clock, this festival at last began sensibly and visibly to decrease, and soon almost ceased. The sides of the gallery assumed a crystallized tint, with a somber hue. White mica began to commingle more freely with feldspar and quartz to form what may be called the true rock, the stone which is hard above all, that supports without being crushed the 4 stories of the earth's soil. Alright, let's just take a little minute here and take a look at what we're doing on this drive. Oh, we're gonna slide our way towards the bottom of Mount Ord and start the big pull up. I got a couple of videos that show that different thing, and I'll look up every once in a while here and just see how many times we can see where there were vehicles on fire. Alright, let's get back to it here. Okay, the Earth's soul. We were walled by an immense prison of granite. It was now 8 o'clock, and still there was no sign of water. The sufferings I endured were horrible. My uncle now kept at the head of our little column. Nothing could induce him to stop. I, meanwhile, had but one real thought. My ear was keenly on the watch to catch the sound of a spring. But no pleasant sound of falling water fell upon my listening ear. But at last the time came when my limbs refused to carry me. I contended heroically against the terrible tortures I endured, because I did not wish to compel my uncle to halt. To him I knew this would be the last fatal stroke. Ooh, that was the end of the chapter. That was a quick chapter, wasn't it? Yeah. Oh, hang on a second. Okay, that don't make no sense. That don't make no sense. Alright, yeah, that was too short. So here we go. I skipped a couple of pages there, and I guess we just can't get away with it that easy. Alright, let's take a look at this drive here again. Are we there yet? Are we going up the big hill? Oh, here it is. So yeah, we come around in here, and then that's the bottom. Oh, you see there's a guy sitting there. There's a brake check area there to go down that next hill. But as soon as we slide around the curve here a couple of times, that's officially the bottom of the Mount Ord, and you start to climb up. And in the summertime, you know, it's well over 110 degrees, and oof, boy, that can sure test your equipment. All right, so oh boy, okay, yeah, I know where we are. Last final fatal stroke, and then I thought we had a chapter, but we did not. Suddenly I felt a deadly faintness come over me. My eyes could no longer see. My knees shook. I gave one despairing cry and fell. Help! Help! I'm dying! My uncle turned and slowly retraced his steps. He looked at me with folded arms, and then allowed one sentence to escape, in hollow accents from his lips. All is over. The last thing I saw was a face fearfully distorted with pain and sorrow, and then my eyes closed. When I again opened them, I saw my companions lying near me, motionless, wrapped in their huge traveling rugs. Were they asleep or dead? For myself, sleep was wholly out of the question. My fainting fit was over. I was wakeful as a lark. I suffered too much for sleep to visit my eyelids the more, that I thought myself sick unto death dying. The last words spoken by my uncle seemed to be buzzing in my ears. All is over. And it was probable that he was right. In the state of prostration to which I was reduced, it was madness to think of ever again seeing the light of day. Above were miles upon miles of the earth's crust. As I thought of it, I could fancy the whole weight resting on my shoulders. I was crushed, annihilated, and exhausted myself in vain attempts to turn in my granite bed. Hours upon hours passed away. A profound and terrible silence reigned around us, the silence of the tomb. Nothing could make itself heard through these gigantic walls of granite. The very thought was stupendous. Presently, despite my apathy, despite the kind of deadly calm into which I was cast, something aroused me. It was a slight but peculiar noise. While I was watching intently, I observed that the tunnel was becoming dark. Then, gazing through the dim light that remained, I thought I saw the Icelander taking his departure, lamp in hand. Why had he acted thus? Did Hans the guide mean to abandon us? Oh, let's take a look at the drive here. Okay, yeah, here's the bottom. And you know what I do is just dump her into fourth gear and just grind it all. If it's hot, I'll just grind it all up at 50 miles an hour if I can. A lot of times there's other trucks and stuff in the way, and I just kind of park myself in behind them because what's the point? There was a burned vehicle right there. All right, so yeah, here we go. If the temperatures are 80 degrees or below, 90 degrees or below even, heck, I can go fifth gear with my foot to the floor and just cruise out up there at 60 miles an hour without any trouble at all. But in the summertime, when it's super hot, I tend to be a little more cautious because I really don't want to be sitting on the side of the road in 115 degrees. Okay, what had he acted as? Did the Hans the guy mean to abandon us? My uncle lay fast asleep or dead. I tried to cry out and arouse him. My voice, feebly issued from my parched and fevered lips, found no echo in the fearful place. My throat was dry, my tongue was stuck to the roof of my mouth. The obscurity by this time became intense, and at last even the faint sound of the guide's footsteps was lost in the blank distance. My soul seemed filled with anguish, and death appeared welcome. Only let it come quickly. Hans is leaving us, I cried. Hans, Hans, if you are a man, come back. These words were spoken to myself. They could not be heard aloud. Nevertheless, after the first few moments of terror were over, I was ashamed of my suspicions against a man who hitherto had behaved so admirably. Nothing in his conduct or character justified suspicion. Moreover, a moment's reflection reassured me. His departure could not be a flight. Instead of ascending the gallery, he was going deeper down into the gulf. Had he had any bad design, his way would have been upwards. This reasoning calmed me a little, and I began to hope. The good and peaceful and imperturbable Hans would certainly not have risen from his sleep without some serious and grave motive. Was he bent on a voyage of discovery? During the deep, still silence of the night, had he at last heard the sweet murmur about which we were all so anxious? Oh, now that one's the end of the chapter. Now that one's the end of the chapter. Now this is chapter 20, 20. Water. Where is it? A bitter disappointment. Oh, there was another vehicle on fire right there. Yeah, boy, oh boy, they catch on fire and then they just pull over to the side of the road. And then they set the forest on fire. The road gets closed down anyway. You may as well just park right there in the middle of the road. Let the thing burn. Okay, so yeah, we got this one little lefty here, and it goes up. It gets a little bit steeper right here as we go left up the hill, and then we'll top it all up there. I don't think we stop at the brake check area today, and we don't get too much further either. So we're going to get a little ways into this chapter 20, but not too far. So chapter 20, water, where is it? A bitter disappointment. During a long, weary hour, there crossed my wildly delirious brain all sorts of reasons as to what could have aroused our quiet and faithful guide. The most absurd and ridiculous ideas passed through my head, each more impossible than the other. I believe I was either half or wholly mad. Suddenly, however, there arose, as it were, from the depths of the earth, a voice of comfort. It was the sound of footsteps. Hans was returning. Presently, the uncertain light began to shine upon the walls of the passage. And then it came in view, far down the sloping tunnel. At length, Hans himself appeared. He approached my uncle, placed his hand upon his shoulder, and gently awakened him. My uncle, as soon as he saw who it was, instantly rose. "Well," exclaimed the professor. "Latin," said the hunter. I did not know a single word of Danish language, and yet, by a sort of mysterious instinct, I understood what the guide had said. "Water! Water!" I cried, in a wild and frantic tone, clapping my hands and gesticulating like a madman. "Water!" murmured my uncle, in a voice of deep emotion and gratitude. Where? Nidat. Below? Where? Below? I understood every word. I had caught the hunter by the hands and shook them heartily, while he looked on with perfect calmness. The preparations for our departure did not take long, and we were soon making rapid descent into the tunnel. Oh yeah, we're going to try to follow this guy up the hill here. There was another one on fire right there, yep. An hour later, we had advanced 1,000 yards and descended 2,000 feet. At this moment, I heard an accustomed and well-known sound rushing along the floors of the granite rock, a kind of dull and sullen roar, like that of a distant waterfall. During the first half hour of our advance, not finding the discovered spring, my feelings of intense suffering appeared to return. Once more I began to lose all hope. My uncle, however, observing how downhearted I was, again becoming, took up the conversation. "Hans was right," he exclaimed enthusiastically. "That is the dull roar of a torrent." "A torrent?" I cried, delighted at even hearing the welcome words. "There's not the slightest doubt about it," he replied. "A subterranean river is flowing beside us." I made no reply, but hastened on, once more animated by hope. Okay, there was the brake check area, and now we're gonna roll on down the hill. And all the way down, yes, there's one, maybe two more climbs. But that's basically it. And any of the hot air is definitely on that side. It gets so much hotter now. Alright, so we got a little bit left. Let's just see how much we do have left here anyway. Because we might be getting pretty close. I can't remember where I knocked this thing off. Oh yeah, it's not that far away. So we'll get a little bit more into this chapter, but not much further. All right. Suddenly, however, wholly mad. I was either half or wholly mad. Oh yeah, no, we did all that. Here we go here. Slightest out a subterranean river. I hastened on, but hastened once more, and animated by hope, I began not even to feel the deep fatigue which hitherto had overpowered me. The very sound of this glorious murmuring water already refreshed me. We could hear it increasing in volume every moment. The torrent, for which a long time could be heard flowing over our heads, now ran distinctly along the left wall, roaring, rushing, spluttering, and still falling. Several times I passed my hand across the rock, hoping to find some trace of humidity, of the slightest percolation. Alas, in vain. Again, a half hour passed in the same weary toil. Again we advanced. It now became evident that the hunter, during his absence, had not been able to carry his researches any further. Guided by an instinct peculiar to the dwellers in mountain regions and water finders, he smelt the living spring through the rock. Still, he had not seen the precious liquid. He had neither quenched his own thirst, nor brought us one drop in his gourd. Moreover, we soon made the disastrous discovery that if our progress continued, we should soon be moving away from the torrent, the sound of which gradually diminished. We turned back. Hans halted at the precise spot where the sound of the torrent appeared nearest. I could bear the suspense and suffering no longer, and seated myself against a wall, behind which I could hear the water seething and ever-essing, not 2 feet away, but a solid wall of granite still separated us from it. Hans looked keenly at me, and, strange enough, for once, I thought I saw a smile on his imperturbable face. He rose from a stone on which he had been seated and took up the lamp. I could not help rising and following. He moved slowly along the firm and solid granite wall. I watched him with mingled curiosity and eagerness. Presently he halted and placed his ear against the dry stone, moving slowly along and listening with the most extreme care and attention. I understood at once that he was searching for the exact spot where the torrent's roar was most plainly heard. This point he soon found in a lateral wall on the left side, about 3 feet above the level of the tunnel floor. Oh boy, that's getting exciting. Okay, let's just get one or two more sentences in here. I was in a state of intense excitement. I scarcely dared to believe what the eiderduck hunter was about to do. It was, however, impossible for a moment more not to both understand and applaud, and even to smother him in my embraces when I saw him raise the heavy crowbar and commence an attack upon the rock itself. "Saved!" I cried. Okay, guys, let's call it right there. It's just getting so exciting. Thank you for coming along. We'll see you next time, and I promise we'll pick it up right here. Okay, we'll leave it to you, you big old Rosie. There you go now.